So let's go ahead and get started with our first story. Eric Berger on X posted that there was like a 6-minute all hands meeting with the Boeing SLS employees, basically saying, hey, look, we think there's a strong possibility that our contract is about to not be renewed, and we're giving you effectively 60 days notice. It sounded like it was very scripted, which of course, if they're about to do mass layoffs, it would be. There was no Q&A, and it's effectively Boeing bracing for the cancellation.
Constellation?
The cancellation? No, I mean going backwards a bit, right? We've been doing this for a while, so I remember saying cancellation, right? It's cancellation version 2. The canceling of the Space Launch System. So, what are we thinking? Like, by the way, community, you too.
Past.
What are we thinking? Yeah.
Jeez, I mean, I thought that there was a lot more people on this. The part of this whole layoff notice is that they would be looking to eliminate 400. And there's, some stuff that who knows whether they'll be honest about this, that they want to try to move people to different departments within Boeing. But I was surprised to learn that this only affects 800 people total. So they're looking to reduce their SLS workforce by half, essentially. And for some reason, for how much money that they get for it, I thought that there was a lot more people working on SLS from the Boeing side than 800 people. But, you learn new things every day.
Well, I mean, it's not, in all fairness, that the money doesn't all just go to Boeing, right? They are the prime contractor, but not the only contractor for this. It's possible that they are just reading tea leaves, but don't actually have information. Well, they probably have some information, but they may not know, right? What do we think is going to happen with the space program, the NASA space program specifically? Do we think the White House is going to gut it, or do we think this is one of those things that they don't want to touch because they want a legacy? I could see both, right? I think my point on this one is, they may not know yet, but they know that their contract is coming up in, March, end of March. And so they're probably wanting to put themselves in a position where if they need to lay off a bunch of people, they've already started the stopwatch, right? And if the White House says, no, you can keep the Space Launch System, or if Congress says, no, you can't kill this, because it is an act of Congress, not the White House at the end of the day, right? It's fun. The purse is controlled by Congress, not by the White House. So I think maybe they're just prepping for the possibility of that happening. And if it doesn't happen, then they go, okay, you're all fine, but we gave you the notice.
Mm-hmm. This could definitely be spun a couple of different ways. I mean, this could be, Boeing at an attempt that even if SLS doesn't get canceled, that, we're trying to, have a leaner program and do things more affordably and efficiently, blah, blah, blah. Could also be done a whole separate way of Artemis doesn't get canceled and, hey, we just laid off half of our workforce who works on it. So we need extra appropriations in order to be able to comply with the mandate of being able to reach targets. So, I mean, this could work out a couple of different ways.
There are, the chat room is kind of anti-Boeing here, which is so trendy right now. But Drew D says, the fact is the SLS layoffs are a good thing. It's time to save money from that project. Okay, but is losing a super heavy launch capability a good thing?
Have we lost a super heavy launch capability?
I mean, not yet, but if we cancel Space Launch System. Well, no, I'm just saying, if we cancel Space Launch System, we would be losing a super heavy launcher. Yeah, it's launched. It is absolutely launched. It has another 2 launches on the books, right?
Yeah, it's launched. It's delivered a payload to its intended target, and it did so successfully.
Wait, am I the one that has to defend Boeing? Am I going to have to take the defend? Are you putting me into a corner where I have to defend Boeing? Is that what's happening?
Yes, you did put yourself in the corner, but go ahead, please. We all would love to hear you from this corner and the echoing happening around it.
I'm playing devil's advocate here, right? So we would be losing a super heavy lift launcher's capability if we got rid of the Space Launch System. I think we've all kind of railed on SLS for so long. It's so easy for us to rail on it. And the reason we rail on it, I think, is twofold. One, it's so expensive. It is so expensive. I don't know how they made a rocket that expensive. I'm not even mad. I'm just a little impressed, right? Like, that takes talent. There's a reason we call it the Senate launch system. I can't believe you guys backed me into a corner where I have to defend this rocket. But okay, fine. I'll defend the rocket. Hey, if you understand it well enough, you should be able to defend both sides. So this is my defending SLS stance, right? First off, we've invested quite a bit of money into the ground launch system. The GSE, the ground support equipment at 39 Bravo, right? So that pad has a bunch of GSE. That works. We have shown the GSE works. And as we have railed on this show many, many times, GSE is very complicated. It is very expensive, and it is very hard to get it into an operational state. They have completed that portion of it. The big, hard, awful thing for this rocket, they have, in fact, tested and validated, and it works. So that's A. So by getting rid of the Space Launch System, we're effectively also throwing away all of that GSE, because you can't really fundamentally reuse that for a different designed rocket. That's not how rockets really work. Star, but really that's not how they work. So why would we get rid of all of that infrastructure that we already have? Number two, it is actually super heavy lifter. It can bring a fantastical amount of payload to the moon if we wanted to. It can bring humans to the moon. It is designed for deeper space exploration than just the International Space Station. And it has already done its experimental flight, and it is ready to do a flight to the moon. Like, that's its next mission, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's Artemis 2. Yeah. Yep, that's Artemis 2, sometime next year. Next year, who else right now can send humans, right? Who else right now is ready to send humans to the moon? Right now. Next year. Right now, next year.
Right now, later.
You get my point, though. You get my point, right? Like, what other infrastructure? Go ahead.
Couldn't SpaceX do that with a Dragon capsule on Falcon Heavy?
Hush. I don't know if...
Great Dragon!
Well, could they or could they not?
Not without very, very extensive modifications. Dragon is a LEO vehicle, and going to the moon is a very different environment than being in low Earth orbit. You know, the Polaris Dawn was 6 days long, not because they wanted it to be 6 days long, but because Dragon could only last 6 days in LEO, right? You can't do a Artemis 2, Artemis 3 style mission with a vehicle of those capabilities. So you'd need extensive modifications, essentially a vehicle redesign with Dragon. At which point, we might as well use Starship.
So we've got a rocket that's next year ready to fly humans to the moon. I don't think there's another rocket that far along, right? So we can sit here and rail on SLS all day long, but it actually is pretty far along to being able to do its core objective. And also, I believe Artemis 2 has already been built. That's another good point. Remember that there's no alternative because none was allowed to be built. So I know as a group we don't like it because of cost. We don't like it because it wasn't built and designed by engineers. It was built and designed by Congress. We don't like it because its flight cadence isn't high enough. We don't like it because it's not reusable. I know. I hear you. I feel you. But again, no one's this close. So is now the right time to cancel the program? That's my argument.